Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here with Macabre Daily, and I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Sean. Sean, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, everybody.
Well, Sean and I are delighted today because we are joined by our first Academy Award winner, but he is an Academy Award winning makeup artist, Joel Harlow, who has contributed his talents to some of the biggest and most well-known properties in entertainment. We're talking about Toxic Avenger 2 and 3, personal favorites of mine, because I went all the way back in your IMDb, Joel.
Yeah,
Uh,
good. That's
Lord of
something that
Illusions.
everyone pulls out.
Yeah, that's the first one I figured people will say is the redemption of Toxie. But we also have Lord of Illusions, a personal favorite of mine, as well as films like The Matrix, Marvel films, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Pirates of the Caribbean, Godzilla, Star Trek. I could list them all more, but
Right.
honestly, I'm already overwhelmed myself. So Joel's storied career in entertainment industry is also led him to bringing a new anthology to screens, specifically Screambox on December 12th, and it's going to be the old time radio anthology, which we cannot wait for folks to see. So, Joel, I'm going to be
Well,
quiet for a moment and say just welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Matt, Sean, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to kind of get the word out, for these projects, these short films and this documentary that, I've really poured all my horror passion into. And, I hope they're received with the intent that they are being delivered. And that is, from a horror fan to horror fans.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I speak for you as well, Sean, but I think you've succeeded full stop with old time radio.
Oh,
And and for folks that are watching this, they're able to catch a glimpse of some of the makeup and creature effects that are in old time radio. Particularly, I think we see our good friend Artemis Gas right here. Um, but Joel, I want to ask you first about old time radio's inception because as I was doing some digging, it looks like originally this was a concept you came up with 2022.
yeah.
So what was the original origin of this, and then how did you come back to revisiting it here in 2025?
Well, I mean, the idea initially was that I wanted to do an anthology series, right? So I wanted to do a wraparound for an anthology. And these characters were supposed to be part of that wraparound. That's why nobody talks. Nobody ever says a word in these films.
Huh.
They're narrated. The latter ones are narrated, but the initial ones, it's everything that needs to be conveyed is conveyed through song. Um, the idea is that the radio is really the only thing that talks. So, you have a bit of back and forth with the characters, and then we drift into the radio and out of some sort of listening or broadcasting device within the context of a story that we now find ourselves in. And then you pick up the story, go back into that device at the end, and come out of the radio. But they just kind of took on a life of their own, and they became more than a wraparound. They became the focus of what I wanted to do because I had so much fun sort of crafting this world. I mean, there's four of them now. There's four shorts, and I just finished a fifth. Actually, tomorrow in the studio here, I'm going to finish the fifth with some underwater water ghost effects.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, which is cool. But then I also did a documentary, an hour-long documentary behind the scenes of all that stuff. So, I mean, it just kind of grew into its own thing, as opposed to being sort of a tie-in to something else.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, Joel, this is for any horror fan, whether, they're moviegoers or they're watching stuff on TV, like they grew up on, like, Tales from the Dark Side or something like that,
Yeah.
Twilight Zone. This is a love letter to EC Comics and Tales from the Crypt and Creepy Magazine and
Yep.
Bernie Wrightson. And I mean, like, just all the horror comics that we grew up on and those films, those incredible, like, Amicus anthologies that we got in the
Yep.
early 70s. I mean, you are hitting it out of the park. I
Thank you.
I couldn't soak it up fast enough when I was watching these films.
Thank you. That means
It
a lot. Thank you.
blew me away. And to your point, even though it was constructed as a wraparound, after I watched the first 6 minute short, and these characters become a family. I mean, they
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah.
And you become fully invested in
Good.
the dynamics between them, who's trying to screw who over and murder
Exactly.
them.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad that came across. Yeah, that's
Oh,
great.
absolutely. I mean, you can tell my smile now, but as I was watching these shorts, it just kept growing and growing and growing. And I hope that I'm not being assumptive, that I am hitting these notes of what your influences were,
Oh,
because it's
yes.
there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, writes in obviously creepy and eerie, Tales from the Crypt, Tales of the Unexplained, all those, as well as going to leaning into the radio of it all.
Yeah.
There's some great horror radio serials like Suspense and Lights Out and the Witch's Book, and I mean, there's so many. I'm blanking on a lot of them right now, but Tales of the Unexpected, I think, was one of them. The Price of Fear,
Oh my God.
Vincent
Yeah.
Price. I'm a huge Vincent Price fan. um yeah, I mean, those were all big influences, as well as like the AIP films,
Oh
like,
my gosh. Yeah. The Corman
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, the Corman stuff. Yeah, absolutely. When you had Karloff, Price, and Laurie together on screen, I mean, you can't beat that. That's amazing.
Right. And you know,
So
they're
it's
going
like
to
it's
lose it.
that kind of.
When they see this, they're going to lose it. Honestly, it's right
Oh,
there for them. And
thank
they're going
you.
to dine out on it like we did.
Oh, I really appreciate it. That's very kind. Thank you.
You
Well,
bet.
and even
And
in
you
the
earned it.
vein of, I mean, in the vein of having some of those kind of actors who, and characters, let me call them characters rather, because people that we know outside of just entertainment to become celebrities in themselves, you've also infused some really fun Easter eggs for folks that are paying attention. Um, one that particular, the first one that caught my eye was the most noticeable one as a metalhead, because as a big, as an Anthrax fan, I was immediately drawn to one of them. But it's fun. It's fascinating. You mentioned that the reason for no dialogue was because they were intended to be wraparounds, whereas I had kind of operated under the assumption that the old time radio theme and aesthetic kind of lends itself to this post depression era or even depression era kind of a vibe where you don't actually have as many, as much dialogue and speech in film, and it is more about the action and the visuals as opposed to the dialogue being the motivating or the driving proposing force of the narrative. Was it always, what was it that draws you to that time period specifically around that kind of 20s 30s era?
Yeah, you know what? I don't have a really good answer for that. It just feels like, being a fan of horror, it feels like it if you can create it to exist in sort of a timeless period. And it is 20s, 30s, maybe a little 40s, depending on what song I've chosen. It gives it sort of it gives it this atmosphere that you can't really nail down, but it's layered, it's got history, it's rich. And I think that that's what it is. I think it's, certainly my childhood comes to bear a lot in these things, where my father would take me on walks and we'd go into used bookstores, and, I'd find Lovecraft books and, certainly the creepy and eerie magazines, and, anything Richard Corbin, I'd be drawn to. Um, so it's like, and at that time, my father also got me into listening to radio serials, like the Chicken Heart in Lights Out. It was like, what, really, Chicken Heart? And that was one of the things that just really drew me to sort of that imagination world. And this is basically me putting images to like an imaginary, because in radio you have to in the mind's eye has to see it. This
Right.
is my mind's eye pulling from all those influences, presenting something dimensional,
I mean, it's very, very
something that.
Dickensian. Like but also at the same time, like it has, I think the timelessness is well achieved because it does exist in this kind of almost snow globe of horror where, you shake this little thing around and these characters come out and like they do these, they kind of mess with each other, they mess with themselves, and then they kind of go back. And I love that this like you let this evolve into what it was going to be, as opposed to trying to almost keep it into something else, retrofitting into like, these ideas are too big or too interesting. And the makeup effects, I mean, obviously this is your craft, but
Right.
holy shit, Joel, like these are so good. And they're so, I mean, it's just when I think the lack of dialogue is in service of appreciating the artistry that's on screen, because it gives you a chance to not have to worry about what you're paying attention to, kind of listening to, as more as you get to listen with your eyes in this case.
I love that.
Um,
I love that. I'm going to
so
steal that.
please do, because I'm going to forget it. My ADHD doesn't allow me to remember anything I've said once it leaves my mouth. Um, so I think one of the things that um, comes to mind when I was watching this is you're also you're also taking a role inside the makeup, and it's not the first time you've kind of been in put yourself in your own in your own creation, so to speak. But it doesn't happen as often. And I'm wondering, how does it feel for you to be on the receiving end of all of this makeup work?
Well, I mean, I love being in makeup. It's kind of liberating. I think I'm naturally sort of a performer by heart. So to be able to, cover myself, and I knew what it needed to be. It is that Uncle Creepy sort of intro into the story. The guy that, is in the corner of the page, when
And the
everything else,
chest.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
And
that's
everything
so
else is
cool.
like laid out. But yeah, playing the Artemis character, um, I mean, it's fun. And I usually do that last, right? So we do
Okay.
everything else. So that's like, okay, now I can relax and just be this guy. I don't have to do a makeup, at 3 a.m. and then go to set and shoot all day. I can just have a makeup done on me, go to set and, I do my lines and, deliver my performance and we're good. This last one, the one I just finished, the Halloween one, I don't play that character. I've got a different guy
Okay.
that he's not playing Artemis. He's playing this character called Uncle Scratch. That's more of a devil character with a bunch of kids around. So I have a bunch of kids. I corrected a bunch of kids, which was amazing. These kids were awesome. I can't wait for people to see that one. It's really fun
Oh,
because it's
you
all
had us at
Halloween.
Halloween. I can't
Yeah,
wait to
Yeah.
see this.
yeah. And I got John Landis to be it. Rick,
Ah,
Rick, and John Landis
Well,
on.
I mean, so I don't know if Rick Baker is trying to turn into an actor in his later ages and stages of
right?
life, but he just appeared in Micheline and
Yeah,
Pitts and R.H. Norman, Home Haunt at the end of VHS.
yeah.
Fascinating story about how he ended up there. But then I saw him here, and I'm like, wait a minute, is he pivoting? Is he getting out of the makeup world and just going straight into acting? But you do have so many of those collaborators. I mean, Paul Giamatti
Yeah.
doing the voiceover, and I know that at least I've heard anecdotally he's kind of like a underground horror fan. Like he's someone who
Yes, very much so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we're friends and we've done a couple of projects together. So when I asked him, I was like, my wife was like, just ask your friends, see, if you want Paul to narrate, just ask Paul. It's like, I hate, to put people in that position. I was like, all right. And he was more than willing to
And
do
then
it.
they
Same with
jump at
Rick,
it, right?
more
yeah.
than willing. Yeah, more than willing. Scott Ian, same thing. Kevin Smith, John Landis, everybody has been so generous with their time, and their talent. It's really, I think it's turned these films into like a melting pot of all the things that I think are fun when it comes to horror. It's like, oh, what other ingredient can I throw in here? Oh, I know. Let's put Rick Baker out in front of a cemetery. It's like, that'll be fun.
And he looks like he has been there forever. Like
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
born for this,
Yeah. He's the guy that, he's like the Kermit the Frog to the Statler and Waldorf of the two guys in the house. It's like, oh, it's like it's like these guys, they got out again,
It reminded me of the haunted mansion, the three ghosts in the
Yeah.
haunted
Very much
mansion.
so.
They kind of had that, they're almost like the jokers of the graveyard, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's such a treasure chest of things to enjoy when you're watching it, and they're also relatively short. It's one of the few times I've found myself saying, "I wish this was longer." It's not
Oh,
something I
that's
say
great.
these days.
Yeah.
Well, from your lips, let's hope that someone
Exactly.
I would love to. I mean, obviously, like every time I have the opportunity to make a film, I make one of these. So obviously, this is the sandbox I like playing in.
Keep doing it.
You know,
Please keep doing it.
I think the next one, the one I want to do next, is a because I've done 2 holidays in a row. I did Christmas and and then built up to Halloween, which is about 15 minutes.
Oh, nice.
And I think the next one is going to be a Lovecraftian thing.
Oh, be still my heart.
Yeah, it's like all those things. It's like, oh, I would, it's like as a kid, it's like I think that's cool. I want to do that. And I'll throw in some stop motion and
Yeah.
just
Well,
because
I
I
mean, the
love like
miniature
the
work was
Rankin Bass of
fantastic
it
as
all.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be the next one, but that's a ways off. It's like
I've got to ask you. So you must have been a monster kid, right?
oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Is
it's
there
quite
any
big.
doubt? Yeah.
So what were your influences? When did it tip over from you just appreciating, horror comics, horror books, and horror movies? When did it tip over to, you know what, I can make a career out of this? And who were you like a Jack Pierce, Dick Smith guy? Who did you lean into?
Yeah, weirdly enough, I was a stop motion guy.
So Harryhausen.
Yeah, Harryhausen and Willis O'Brien. It's
Oh,
like I was a king. It's like I think when I realized I wanted to make characters, and I'll put that kind of label on it, was when like every Thanksgiving, I grew up in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Every Thanksgiving after dinner, they'd be running King Kong, the
King
original
Kong,
King Kong.
Son of Kong.
On
Yeah.
TV. Yeah, it's like, ooh, let's go down and watch King Kong. And that became it's like I want to do that. So as a kid, yeah, exactly. So as a kid, I would, I try to do it with my Super 8 camera and all that. Went to school, but then, I saw American Werewolf, and I was like, oh, that is the thing.
That's it.
Yeah. And speaking of the thing, I saw The Thing. I was like, those are the 2 movies I think that influenced me the most. That sort of, I don't want to say derailed, but changed still heading in the same direction, but just changed the path. We'll make characters this way instead. That's what I want to do. Went to New York, School of Visual Arts in the city. There were no classes at that time for makeup. It was the closest I could get was animation, at School of Visual Arts. So I did that. Ultimately found a place in Times Square that Jennifer Aspinall and Dean Cartalis ran called the Actors School of Makeup. So I went to do that. It was like 6 weekends, something like that. Did those 6 weekends. And then at the end of it, you do like a makeup on yourself, and, which is difficult, especially if you're brand new at it. It's like, it's hard enough to do it on somebody else. Doing it on yourself, not so easy. And then dropped out of school when I got a job on Toxic Avenger.
Oh, wow.
In New York. Yeah.
And then the rest is history.
The rest is, yeah. And then moved out to California and, shop my portfolio, as meager as it was around. And,
now look at your IMDb. It goes over 7 miles. Are you kidding?
I mean, if you got enough mileage on you, you're going to accumulate some credits.
What I love about your background, though, and what you've worked on is it's beautiful amalgam of different types of craft. So look, I hope you take this as a compliment. I really haven't seen someone do the kind of age makeup that you do since Dick Smith with like Little Big Man.
I mean, of course that's a compliment. Yeah, what, are you kidding?
It's amazing, but you don't stop there. I mean, you're doing all facets of special effects and makeup effects. What's your favorite? If you have your druthers, what would you love to do?
I mean, in the makeup world, or like just in general.
Let me not limit it.
Well, I mean, it's these films, it's because it gives me a range to do everything. It's the ultimate character creating. It's, sculpting, because I sculpted all the makeups myself. I can't apply them all myself, but I do apply one in the morning. It varies which one it is. I do the wardrobe, I do the costuming, I do the props, I do the find the location, obviously write the script and direct the thing and produce it. But I think it's the logical end result of somebody that really just wants to make a character, because you get to do that in a physical sense by applying makeup to somebody, and then you step away and the director takes over and the script takes over and the performer takes over. But this, I get to take a character that I've created, put them in an environment, and introduce a scenario to them and see them interact with each other. And I think that is, I mean, nothing's more fulfilling than that. And I thought, when I was younger, that the most fulfilling aspect of what I would ever do professionally would be to see one of my makeups come to life, because that is like a Frankenstein moment. It's like, there's my monster and it's moving and all that. But now to be able to take that monster and have it interact with other monsters, is like, infinitely more satisfying.
Oh, I can imagine.
And a huge step up from, the makeup alone.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it's
you
got to be.
realize as a kid at that bookstore with your dad, you're like,
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be inspiring, though. I mean, I think, you know, having been on so many sets that you've been on and contribute to so many films, and receiving quite a bit of praise for them as well. I think if you are a true creative at heart, you're going to see that, and you're only going to be left thinking, well, I could do that. I want to do that. I want to do my own version of that. And so I think in what's so, I think, um, amazing about what you're putting forward here is that you're not you're not getting comfortable with saying, oh, I've accomplished a lot, and I'm going to just be really good at this thing. You instead say, no, I want to continue creating in a way that's going to serve me as I want. And I think that that's a freedom that a lot of folks don't have generally. But even in the creative space, you often do get kind of pigeonholed a little bit into doing this thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So I think the fact you've not only kind of kept the flame hot on your ideas, but also starting to bring them to life is, it's the testament to, I think, your dedication to the craft, but also just your desire to create. And we're living in a really interesting world, right? An interesting time, I think, in entertainment. And the industry has been, the ubiquitous amounts of technology that are being used have finally changed how the industry operates, how it creates. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how have you, like, what's been your experience as you've seen this evolution away from, you know, practical and makeup effects being kind of the only way of doing this, now into a way where you have to work alongside CGI and digital effects.
I think, well, I mean, I think that CGI and practical, there's a nice marriage there now,
Right.
of digital and practical. Obviously, when digital was hitting its stride, let's say after Jurassic Park, um, everything went digital, and all my friends and myself included was like, well, that's it, we're done. Traditional makeups and makeup effects and prosthetics that's going to be replaced. But then there something really interesting happened, a sort of a renaissance of practical makeup effects. Uh, it encroached back into the film industry. So it was like the pendulum swung and then swung back to people wanting to see practical, because no matter how good a digital effect is, it's digital. Same for
Right.
AI. You can look at AI and know it's AI. Great. It looks amazing. All the stuff's moving. Maybe too much stuff is moving. Um, but and I don't know what it is. Somebody can tell me what it is, but in your head, in your eye, that that's not real.
Yeah.
And something that for me exists in the real world, even if I don't see it in the real world, I see it on a screen. Knowing that it exists, it gives me, it makes me happy,
Yeah.
knowing that somebody took the time to make that
That is
effect.
tangible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a tangibility to it that you don't get from CG, and you definitely don't get from AI. Um, that it's like a museum. It's like going to a museum on screen.
Joel, the way I feel about it is that tangible aspect of practical effects, it reaches through the screen and it brings you into it.
Yeah.
It opens the door, it brings you in. Where CGI, as good as it is, I don't want to put the boots to anything, but it's a wall that you can't get past. Your
Yeah.
brain, to your point, your brain just won't let you. But with practical, it really is an invitation to come in, and it opens, it expands the experience of that movie exponentially.
Yeah. I mean, and certainly in these films, I've used CG.
Yeah,
I've
sure.
used matte, clean up, backgrounds and
But
whatever.
they work well together now. Yeah.
Exactly. But it always starts practical.
Yeah.
I will never just create a character in the computer,
Mm-hmm.
and I never in anything use AI. Nothing is AI in any of these movies.
Oh,
I
And
think
I will keep that, as sort of my line in the sand.
well, you get one of these for that.
yeah, as it
Yeah,
should be. I was going to say like
right. I mean,
that's it's a good line in the sand to have these days, and
Oh yeah.
for multitude of reasons. But I think to give a current example of kind of how this works. I had a chance to see the movie Primate at Fantastic Fest this year, which is coming out in January,
yeah,
and the entire like the premise is so silly. It's kind of like the movie Buddy with Renee Zellweger, except make it a horror movie. And so like that premise alone is kind of silly, but they had an actor in a monkey suit playing the chimp, and it makes all the difference.
Right?
The
yep,
movie feels real. Everything, the danger feels more dangerous. Everything's more exciting. And even though it's a guy in a suit, there's a moment where your brain, kind of like good, found footage or mockumentary does. There's a moment where you have to ask yourself, and what I'm watching real or not? And that moment, like it's so far and fleeting now because we're older, we're wiser, and the internet has poisoned us by giving us the access to everything we ever wanted to know and things we didn't. But at the same time, we still have that thing that we don't quite understand, and that to me is the magic of filmmaking of art. Really, is just getting us to enjoy something and not understand how it was made, but just get the pure joy and fun out of it. So
yeah,
I think so much of what and we see that if you watch behind the scenes stuff nowadays too, like I think I was watching the Abigail special features like a couple years ago, and they were showing how like these scenes that they're making, like the CGI is a complement to what already exists. So it's usually in the form of like additional blood splatter that you can't really physically does not work that way, to make it look more obnoxious or more
yeah.
gory. So
I
yeah, I think
challenge
it's
that. Watch any Peck and Paw film. I will
Yeah,
challenge that.
exactly. Yes.
that's red blood right there.
Right?
I mean, even those like those latter Rambo films where they're just eviscerating people, or Dread. It's like that, that's impressive, you know. It's
The squid budget was the GDP of a
yeah,
small country.
crazy.
That's the way we like it.
you
Joel,
know,
can I
yeah,
ask
go
you
John.
what were some of your biggest challenges? What projects did you take on where you were so excited, but then you actually got it and you were like, "Uh-oh, how am I going to do this?"
I mean, there's challenges in any project, huh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, certainly there are characters that were like, oh, this is going to be, this is challenging. Like Bootstrap Bill was challenging. It's like, oh boy. A lot of the aliens from Star Trek Beyond was, that was challenging. But I kind of did that to myself because I would pitch designs that I figured, okay, well, let's see what gets chosen, and then I'll figure out how to
And
make
they took them all.
it. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and then some. I had to keep coming up with ideas. Like 56 aliens in that movie. Um,
Great.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, I don't think there's been anything that I've ever thought thought I was going to fail at. You know, at least not completely.
I'm so curious. At what
I'd show
point?
up with something.
Yeah, yeah, you know, I don't know your background as far as school goes, but there's got to be this demarcation where you have your your artistry and your love of the craft, but then it's got to come up against like the chemistry of actually being able to do these things with
Yeah.
prosthetics and have it be, being able to apply it to human flesh so that it doesn't hurt the actor nor does it tear. Like there's so much intricacy and science based behind it. Did you know that going in, or did you just kind of learn on the fly?
Yeah, no, it was all learning on the fly. I mean,
Wow.
because going in, it's like I didn't know, I knew foam latex. Now it's silicone, right?
Yeah.
That's the default. Um, but sometimes it all depends on what the character is, and that sort of determines the route you're going to go. True of like, say your character is amazing, missing a nose. Let's say missing a nose. Got to do like a prosthetic around there, green out the nose. Great marriage of digital and practical. Digital gets rid of the nose. Um, but the path to getting to a character, it's weird. It's when you, like, I first come up with a design and the design gets chosen, or I'm given a design to execute. A lot of decisions get made in that first day, and then that determines what path you're going to go down. Like,
Okay.
are we going to use gloves? Are we going to use prosthetics? Pros and cons to each. But once you start going down that road, I mean, everything is on a schedule. Movies aren't going to say, okay, just take as long as you want. We'll shoot when you're ready. Um,
Is that
you
one
know,
of the biggest
it's,
challenges because you have this window and it's
yeah, oh yeah.
can't
That's, I think, the biggest challenge is the time.
wow.
Because you could make anything 100%. You could, test and retest until every pore is exactly where it needs to be, and every edge is perfect. But you don't have that luxury. It's like it's show business. You've got to hit a deadline. You've got to hit a budget. Um, yeah. So those decisions that get made at the very beginning determine, you have to be fairly and that's experience, fairly confident in the direction you're going to go, because if you have to change directions in the middle, that's more time, more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Producers
Because
don't want to hear that.
yeah, no, not at all. They came, like they come to you because my resume says that I can do it, so they come to me with a certain amount of trust and faith in me. So it's up to me to make sure that that's not misplaced. I don't know if that answered your question specifically about materials, but
no, it does. It does. I'm just so curious about the industry, your industry specifically. I
yeah,
find this stuff fascinating.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I heard you talk about prosthetic noses. Whenever I hear a prosthetic nose, I always think of Nothing But Trouble in Dan Aykroyd's nose in that movie, as being the best version of a prosthetic nose that's ever been put to film. But
what what about what is it? Danny Aiello's in A Case of the Stubborns on Monsters.
yes,
His nose off. I was like, that's great.
I mean, Monsters is a forgotten. Honestly, if Monsters had like 15 or 20% more budget, it would have been it would have been around much longer because the ideas in that
Yeah.
thing were just overflowing. But
Yeah.
a lot of it looked a little chintzy at the end of the day. But yeah, I still forget. I still love that opening with the family sitting there watching
Yeah, the Cyclops family, and then the potato.
Well, you have your, Morphology FX is your FX company, and you've reached a point, obviously, with your resume and kind of the work you've done, where you probably get a chance, I'm imagining, to choose what work you do, as opposed to having to bid or vie for it as much as you used to. Do you
Yeah,
find that there's a particular type of work that you want to accept more so now than you would have before, or is it, you
I
still
like it
take a
all.
chance? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a fan of all of it. I mean, the show I'm working on now, I'm not doing any, effects makeup. I'm just department heading. I don't want to say just department heading. I'm department heading, but it's straight makeup, beauty makeup, character makeup, but nothing prosthetic, prosthetics driven. And certainly that is, being a monster kid, that's my passion. I want to do creatures and suits and animatronics and all of that. I had a great run on a TV show called Evil.
Oh, are you
Uh,
Yes.
kidding me? I was going to get to that, Joel.
yeah, yeah, that was one where I actually went back, picked out designs that I had done as a kid that I had no idea how to make, no idea what of the materials or whatever. But now as an adult, I rework them a little bit, and now I can make them because I've got the experience and the knowledge as to how to do these characters that really just popped out of my head when I was like 13, 14 years old.
Those creations were next level. They honestly
Thank
were, and especially for look, this is going to come off like I'm sounding like I'm belittling TV. I promise I'm not. But from a budget
Yeah.
constraint, but these effects that you did, they they were amazing, amazing.
Thank you.
The devil, it's the goat devil itself.
Yeah. Well,
When
there are a couple of that. One of them's right back there.
the first reveal of that, and I'm like, wait, what? you know, I mean, it just completely changes the dynamics of the show,
Yeah.
and then it makes it that much more fun. It was unbelievable. I'm glad you brought it up because I really wanted to single that one out.
That was a great show to be a part of. That was one of those shows where that devil, that Baphomet kind of, horned goat devil, um, Robert and Michelle King, who created that show, were very collaborative. And I went to them and I was like, hey, how about for the end of the season, we do like a Baphomet character, and they're like, yeah, all right, let's do it. And next thing I know, I've got a script and it's in there. So there's the thing where I'm like, oh, now I gotta do it.
Gotta make one.
Yeah.
But that was one of, it's had like mechanical eyes and, blended onto the actor's face.
So good.
And then I was like, I want to do another one of those. So I did that guy with the 5 eyes. It's 5, more eyes and bigger horns. Let's keep them coming.
But even the nighttime, the dream demons, where
Yeah.
they're pitch black but shiny, and
Yeah.
it comes through and the light catches them perfectly, and they're so incredibly terrifying. But then of course the dialogue that they're saying is also pretty
Yeah.
witty. It added layers onto that show. I love it, man. If you haven't watched Evil, you got to check it out.
It's a
I'm
good
the
show.
worst at TV shows, and I've actually watched a couple of episodes of Evil, but the thing is, like, my attention span, like, it's locked in when I'm watching a movie, but a show, I'm always like, oh, I've got another episode. So I'm gonna add it into the queue of things to watch because I have that and the From show I think I wanted to check out as well. So those are two that I need to give a look into. But we're in, obviously there's so much horror is having a moment, and horror's always been a moneymaker, right? It's always been one of the genres that gets its budget back and then some, and it's always kind of existed in the margins of entertainment because it's never
been a studio saver as
Yeah.
well. It doesn't get enough credit for that.
Yeah, New Line. I mean, it's an entire the studio that Freddie built, right? And the Lord of the Rings saved. And so it's like, I think, but there's so much of it happening right now. There's so much content. What do you kind of ground yourself with to inspire you? Because obviously you've got your own ideas, but you're also working with other creatives. So what are the things that give you a lot of creative energy and enthusiasm?
Well, I mean, it's just creating. It's there's certainly these films. I when I'm not having a busy day on set, I work on these. I'll work on writing the next one or coming up with ideas or gags or whatever. But then I'm always sculpting. I mean, ZBrush, now a digital sculpting tool is great for sitting on set, sitting in airplanes, waiting on anything. You can just pull open your iPad and, sculpt the thing, which is amazing. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is as long as I'm creating something. I feel like if I go through the day without making something, or at least putting sort of thought into making something, which gets me further towards making it, I feel like I've wasted the day. That's why I'm horrible when I go on vacations. I can't.
I was going to ask you, when do you chill out?
It's like the wheels are always spinning. Certainly I like going to neat places and seeing stuff and spending time with my wife, but she knows it's like, I'll get that sort of faraway stare and it's like, something. It's like, I married this.
Do you have like a sketchbook?
Oh yeah. Constant.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say, because a buddy of mine's a comic book artist, and he's got just boxes of these sketchbooks that he's had for years. And
that's what I went back to for Evil. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'll do this. Like, there's a guy up there with like the cemetery on his head that I sketched like 5 or 6 times as a kid. It was like, I'm gonna make that. Clearly I like it.
I love hearing this stuff. I really do.
I mean, it is, you get to create, like, I think it's the alignment of like talent and interest here is so fascinating to me because you have the chance, like you're one of the rare people who has the talent to be able to create what they're thinking about.
Mm.
Yeah,
And I think that that's something that, like when I try and draw, for example, I have to use a reference, all the times because I have to model myself off of that. But um, I just find it fascinating that you can think of, oh, I want to make some crypt keeper like character, and here's what I have in my head, so I'm going to put that forward and just make it.
yeah.
Um, are there any, think about where you want to go with old time radio? You've talked about you've just finishing a Halloween one. What other ideas do you have to keep this thing going? Because I'd love to. I mean, I feel like Sean feels the same, but and others will feel the same. They would love to see this keep going. So, what
Yes,
other ideas
very
would you
much
like to
so.
infuse into this world and these characters?
I mean, there's the Lovecraftian angle that I want to bring into the next one. But it's not easy making these. I mean, they're all self-financed, and the industry, kind of sucks right now,
Yeah.
honestly. There's a lot of jobs that went overseas. I've been fortunate. I'm fortunate now to be working. But I mean, these are, they're expensive. Granted, I pull in a lot of favors, and I've got some great friends and colleagues who donate their time and talent. But I mean, if I had like my wish, if somebody said, oh, like you just did, what do you want to do? I would love to develop them into like a longer series or a feature.
Yeah.
I think I mean, it seems like streaming now, especially with this Warner Brothers Netflix merger, is going to be, even more prominent.
Right.
As kind of depressing as that is. Um, but honestly, for me, it's about just making them and getting them out there. I don't care what the arena is, as long as there's a sort of a fan base or people like yourselves that enjoy seeing them. I'll keep making them. It'd be great to have somebody pay me to make them.
Right.
Me like mortgaging stuff and um, you know, pulling in the purse strings to make them. But I'm sure my wife would feel the same. But yeah, they may not be, if I can't somehow, if that doesn't work out, I'll still continue to make them because that's why I did this in the first place, because I wanted to see them.
Yeah, it's passion.
They just won't be as frequent because right now I've made like one a year, since I started. Well, actually, the first one I took 2 years, and then I started making one a year.
That's a pretty good rate as far as, I imagine the time it takes to cast these models and kind of
Yeah,
get the production design down and find the people, get the timing.
yeah,
And I think with, to credit to some of the streamers that have entered the arena like Screambox and Shutter, where they are creating niche spaces exclusively for this content. Um, Even though the idea of kind of these mega mergers being this kind of antithesis of like what entertainment should be, it also, I think, creates spaces for niche interest to thrive. And I think people will pay for that rather than, I think that the question of value comes to mind, which is like, do I want 100 channels of which I'm only going to watch two? Or I'm going to pay for the two channels I'm going to watch like 90% of the time.
Great point. Yeah.
right.
And I think we're entering this place where consumers, especially, are kind of getting dicked around about, overpaying for things they don't need, or trying to getting swindled by companies. And it is driving, I think, people to take more interest in the people making things and following them as opposed to following, the channel or the distributor or the studio. But I just hope that we get more of these, Joel, because
Same.
again, they're fantastic to watch. They're little morsels, and they're perfectly timed for the holiday season. So, Sean, I don't know if you had any other questions.
I do. Before we let
Yeah,
you
of
go,
course.
I've got to put you on the spot in a fun way. In a fun
Yeah,
way.
yeah, please.
Okay, could you give us a couple of two questions? Can you give us some deep cuts? Put some creatives on our radar that maybe very well from your industry that you highly respect that maybe the casual viewer doesn't. And because I know Matt and I suffer from this, do you ever go down a rabbit hole of like giallo or like British anthology films? Do you ever get stuck on a loop for a bit?
I mean, I get stuck on a true crime loop. I
Okay,
think a lot of people do
a
that.
lot of
What
people
do they
do.
call it? Like murder porn or something. Certainly, I'll go down those rabbit holes. Toho films.
Oh,
I revisit all the Godzilla films. That's one of, like, if I
Wow.
had to pick like sort of a hierarchy of inspirations, like creative inspirations, that's one of them. That's one of the three. It would be Haunted Mansion, Lovecraft, and Godzilla.
Perfect.
As far as people to put on your radar, are you talking about in what arena?
Have at it. It can be actors, directors, it could be effects people, anyone that you really champion that you don't feel gets enough credit.
Um, well, I'll tell you something. I just watched a short film by Karen Gillan, who is, she plays Nebula.
Sure.
Yeah, everybody knows who she is. Um, that she had written and directed, called Conventional, and I believe it's on her YouTube channel.
Oh,
It's fantastic.
oh, I'm gonna
I
check
was
it
like,
out.
wow, this is great. And I didn't know she directed. I didn't know she wrote. But I was like, me and my wife were in the trailer, we watched it. I was like, this is great.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
I mean, that's cool. That was really is something that I hadn't, no idea about, that I really appreciated. My buddy Mario Torres, sculptor who's also directed before, Norman Cabrera,
Sure.
makeup effects artist who has been doing a bunch of music videos that are very good. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of sort of us in the makeup effects industry that have been like reaching out into other arenas. And my hat's off to all those guys that do that. My hat's off really to anybody that makes anything, because it's not easy. It's like, I don't care if you're doing it on your iPhone, whatever. It's incredibly difficult. So if you make something, you know, bravo,
Yeah, you deserve the accolades
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. Just getting something finished is a challenge.
Completely agree.
well, Joel, this has been amazing. I know that we could probably pelt you with more questions, but I know you've got things to do, you've got creatures to make, and I just want to say again how much fun it's been talking with you about not just your career but old time radio. And I want to remind everyone that's watching this that you can catch old time radio on Screambox on December 12th. Go check it out. These are fun. They're short. They're holiday themed. It's the perfect kind of thing to just interject into your day if you need a shot of horror. And again, the talent on display, both in front of the camera, but as well as the stuff you're doing behind the camera to put this all together, production design, everything is just firing on all cylinders. So, Joel, we hope that this not only is successful, but that it allows you to continue making them at the pace and the kinds of which you'd like to. And hopefully, we'll have you back again to talk about the next thing you're working on.
Anytime you want me back, I would be more than happy to join you guys again.
Oh, Joel,
Oh,
you're so gonna
thank you,
regret
Joel.
that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're gonna get
Maybe you will.
you're gonna end up on Sean's Christmas cookie list, and trust me, they're not great.
Excellent.
So, but
I
they
like
make great
cookies.
dog treats. I think they're almond based, so we're good there. But Joel, again, thank you so much, and everyone, please make sure to watch Old Time Radio. You
It's
won't regret it.
exactly what you're looking for. If you read Macabre Daily, if you watch Screambox, it's exactly what you're looking for, and it's going to be waiting for you.
Yep,
They're
Cool.
going to
there it
love it.
is.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and there's
Joel.
also, I just really quick, there's a documentary too that has a lot of behind the scenes.
This I
I
want to see.
love behind the scenes stuff. So
Yeah,
I was like, I'm gonna put together a documentary. It's like, how do you get somebody to make a documentary about what you're doing? You do it
You just
yourself.
do it, yeah. And we don't get a lot of those anymore. I think the era of the special feature has become relegated to just a handful of boutique labels that care about producing them. But
Yeah,
it used to be you'd buy a DVD and you'd get, I mean, they were documenting everything. So you could
yeah,
have all of this stuff for the special. So the fact that you've put together not only a feature-length documentary, but doing so in 2025 when most producers and studios could care less. It just shows how committed you are to sharing the craft, and I think that's as cool, if not cooler, than everything else, which is that you're still
and
here.
that's what the fans want. That's what we want.
Yeah,
to see.
that's what I would have wanted. It's like, I love that. So like you get a laser disc and it's like, oh, this is how, here's, Mecha Godzilla, the miniature city. It's like, I love that.
And you won't buy it if it doesn't have it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah, same.
Joel, this has been fantastic. This really was. I mean, it's my birthday tomorrow. We have plans tonight.
Oh, wow.
And
Happy
my
birthday.
wife, who I shout out to Jen, she's like, no. You got to talk to Joel. We'll push everything back. So I wasn't going to miss this.
Oh, well, thank you to her. Please give her my thanks.
Well, I'm definitely not going to do that because she'll hold it above me forever.
So he's already in the doghouse. That's just going to put him in the graveyard, I think, at that point. But thanks again, Joel. And again, best of luck with this and everything else you're working on.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate the opportunity.
It's great talking to you.